Welcome to the Blackburn podcast. Okay, I'm not sure how this one's going to go. We delayed it for 24 hours just so we can get some more information from the EFL, and we're still none the wiser. But did it count? Did it not count? Well, let's delve into it. So we are still awaiting the EFL's ruling after the great flood of Ewood. We will keep refreshing pages to see if there's any information that comes during the recording, and we'll let you know if it does. But a Todd Cantwell penalty had given Rovers a well-earned lead against 10 men, Ipswich, before Mother Nature stepped in on the 80th minute. The new signings continue to impress, but what do F-Scout make of them? Mike Sheeran's left the club, and it's the Football Content Awards, and nominations have been released, and we're proud to say we're finalists in the best club content creators in the Football League. I said a few weeks ago, are we podcasters? Are we content creators? Well, apparently the decision's been made for us. So, Mark, I feel like we've made the playoffs, and I'm delighted with that. But is that all it's going to be?
Well, I don't want to turn this into something tribal, Mike, but rumour has it, that lot down the road, I do like the Turfcast lads. I don't like this football team or their choice in football team, but rumour has it they got silver last year. Come on. Whether you like the podcast or not, support your team. It's the right thing to do. But what I would say, Mike, is we did abandon the podcast yesterday, partly to get the EFL stuff out there, partly because I have man flu, and many of us out there will know how serious that is. I will keep muting my microphone so I don't heckle you with coughing constantly. But we have rescheduled. I know here we are the day after. 24 hours later, we're in the seats we should have been. Who would have thought that you could just reschedule and do something the day after? Miracles.
I know. It was funny because you shared a picture, didn't you, of the weather the day after, and it just shows Rovers' luck that the day after it was absolutely stunning weather, and the day before it was a monsoon.
As we record now Tuesday night, we've had no rain since Saturday. It's been glorious blue sunshine. It's been pretty nippy, but it's been absolutely fine. The other thing is, I used to play on the Anchor ground, 10 minutes down the road. It's 4G. Just get them on a bus. Get them down there. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a bit.
Well, exactly. We will get into that. I mean, obviously, we've got a format when it comes to the podcast. We like to talk about the previous match or matches, and then we talk about we preview the next ones until the next recording. This one is now up in the air, but I think we do need to talk about the game because from a progression standpoint, we've got to see players more. Yes, the weather did come into it and did play its part, but we did get to see 80 minutes of football. Well, there was a canoe involved at one point, but yeah, we did get to see some football, and we did kind of do a bit of a match reaction. So let's listen to this one.
Well, mate, there's no point in a proper match review because the match never happened. So yeah, sod it.
Well, Mike, that's a bit of an unusual one. I am not quite sure what to make of it. I thought, game-wise, we'll have some things to talk about. But it was probably the right decision to end the game as it did. It wasn't rolling. I know they were making a meal of all of that, but it's going to feel incredibly harsh if we have to replay it all from scratch, given the fact they're down to 10 men. And we're 1-0 up. Going to be an interesting one.
So I've been through the league handbook, I've scoured the internet, I've used ChatGPT, I've done everything I can, and to be honest, mate, it just looks like it's going to be wiped off and started again. The only thing I did actually read is apparently Blackburn now have to pay Ipswich actually for their return journey because it's technically a wasted journey and technically our fault. So if anything, we're going to be actually out of pocket over this one.
So yeah, we're still getting news coming through about what the club stance is after this one. I did my little audio to you, and then you did a decent one, so I was like, I better add a little bit more meat to the bone on my one. It looks like it's going to be a full replay. What's the latest you've been hearing? Obviously, we're not hearing anything official. What's the latest you've been hearing?
Yeah, so obviously there's no transfer window, so Alan Nixon's got to do something else. Fabrizio Romano's otherwise engaged, but Alan Nixon is all over this, like, yeah. So his latest thing that he's put out today is that Valérien Ismaël apparently is in the middle of the row. So the referee's report, apparently, obviously we've not seen it, Alan Nixon must have done, he must work at the EFL, says that the Frenchman, Ismaël, agreed to call it off because of the state of the pitch. Rovers and Ismaël are apparently fuming about that. And then as we're recording now, Rovers have put a video out. And Ismaël's quotes direct there are saying it was chaotic after the game. We had to accept the decision. Doesn't sound like somebody who agreed with it. The referee abandoned the game, and we go from there and we wait for the decision. We've made our points on the situation. We've prepared our case. We were the team pushing. We were on the front foot. We expect to get the reward because we think that's the fair thing to do. One thing from my side that has to be really clear, that I saw a report from the EFL at the end of the game. I never agreed to stop the game, and I had no choice. The referee made his point clear that he had to abandon the game. He said the pitch was unplayable. He said sorry and explained the EFL will make the decision. I never had to agree to anything because the decision was made. There's a clear point to make from our position. We didn't agree anything. It was a great performance from the players again. We're starting to get that consistency in performances and also the results, and it gives the players the confidence that we want to keep. And he carries on. But yeah, Rovers are obviously feeling very aggrieved about the situation. I think they seem to feel that the fairest outcome is that they will get the 3 points. Ipswich obviously feel the fairest outcome is the game's completely scrapped and it's redone from 0-0. I sit somewhere in the middle. I think I can see Ipswich's point of view that had the game been just awarded to Blackburn, if it is awarded to them, you would argue that 10 minutes is, 15 minutes with added time is a lot in football. But it feels incredibly unfair when they were down to 10 men, 80 minutes have gone, we're 1-0 up. For the game to go back to 0-0, that just doesn't sit right either. I do think as logistical nightmare as it will be, for me, they have to find a way of playing the final 10 minutes. And if Ipswich, I've heard people saying that, well, it's farcical for Ipswich to come all the way from there up to where we are, but it shouldn't matter whether you're playing Bolton or Ipswich. Either 10 minutes is important to them or it's not. If they don't want to travel all the way to the other end of the country for 10 minutes, which is what was remaining of the game, then just give us the points. That's fine. But I think that's the fairest outcome. What about you?
So we've got our sensible heads, we've got our hearts and everything. My frustrations are the same as everyone else's. The game was ours. We felt like it was only going to go one way, and that was a Rovers win. If anyone was going to score, it was going to be us. If anyone was going to get sending off, it was going to be them again because they were starting to get dirtier and dirtier as they played. You could tell there's a frustration from their point with how they were playing. So the game was only going to go one way. The sensible head is it was unsafe and the game did need to stop. I mean, it was obvious, like you said in your match reaction, it was obvious the right decision that the game did need to halt because it was ridiculous. I mean, when he came out, the ref came out and did his show with the ball and everything, as if to say, look at the situation. It's like, we get the situation. The rules are not the rules. I think the rules are pretty clear on some things. This one, I think it can be a little bit of a grey area where it's in motor racing. They have, as people know, I watch NASCAR, and NASCAR will do once the race gets to a certain percentage, if rain halts it, then the result counts. But it's a clear rule that's in, and there isn't one here. So I'm really frustrated. I can only see it going one way, and this is where I am relatively negative in certain situations. I just think that the way they will see it is that 10 minutes in football can really change. We could have had someone off maybe two, then Ipswich are attacking, they could potentially get 2 goals. Look at us versus Birmingham City. And just to say, I got called out for calling Birmingham City Blues. I do apologise, but I keep calling them Birmingham City Blues. It's obviously a force of habit. I will try my best. but look at that game. How on the 90th minute we're winning, and then we go on to lose 2-1. So that's what they're going to be seeing. So whatever happened up until that point, they're not going to care about, and I get that. Now, when it comes to the fact that it's been abandoned due to weather, I personally would like to see the game continue with them having 10 men with 10 minutes to go. But I just think it's unrealistic to expect that. I think that they're just going to come out, and I think it's going to be one of two things. They're either going to just say, look, there was enough game played. It was only going to go one way. We're looking at the momentum of the game. We're going to give all 3 points to Blackburn Rovers. I just think that Ipswich are probably going to be rising again. I think they've had a slow start to the season. I think they've had a pretty poor start to the season for what they would expect. And if we're being honest, we was having a good day, a relatively good day. They're having a relatively bad day, and it was working well for us. The frustrating thing now is if we're going to play Ipswich and they put that game in and we have a full replay, which I think will happen, and it's a bit further down the line, they could have found their form. We could be on a bit of a down point, and suddenly we've lost out. So it's very, very upsetting that we could have had that first win. It would have been a very good 3 points against a very good side. It would have really helped us. I mean, looking at the league, it would have taken us. I mean, look at that Teletext league. It would have taken us all the way up to 10th position. I mean, that's a big leap for us. Considering the start we'd had, there was a lot of us feeling quite negative. That would have taken us there. So I think it'll be a bit of a kick in the proverbials. But I just can't see it going any way other than they get us to replay the game.
No, I agree with you, unfortunately. I think the EFL will be looking at what way is the least likely to get them sued. I think they've caused their own problems for me. I mean, I watch cricket, and it's quite clear that the rules are there. That they have the Duckworth-Lewis method, which is crazy. But I think if we'd have had a hard and fast rule that everybody knew in the 80th minute, 75th, whatever it is, that the result stands, he could have turned around to the players and said, listen, 70 minutes, this is getting a bit tricky. Remember, if it gets to 80, the result stands. Everyone knows where they are. Once that game is then stopped, it's done. But you can't just make that rule afterwards. And I think that's where I can't see us getting the 3 points. I think you could always argue, well, 10 minutes could have happened. They would have almost had their last 10 minutes if it had warned them in the 70th. Everybody, look, this game might not last. You know what you're dealing with then. You've kind of got that last 10 minutes feeling a little bit. I don't think you can do that after. I really don't think they can just give us the points. I think they should find a way of doing the last 10 minutes. People have said it's a logistical nightmare. What about if somebody's injured? Well, what about if we'd have played 30 more seconds and somebody was injured? I think maybe you just sit and say, right, there were your match day squads, of which we had one less sub because Gardner Hickman had to come into the team and we didn't replace him on the bench. Yes, they've used all 5 subs. I think it'd be fair to say if you've got one more player injured or you've got one of your starting players or whoever was on the pitch at the time injured, you can replace one of them, but it has to be with somebody from the bench. Greaves has gone off. He's not playing. And the rest of you crack on. What if they've got 3 injuries? Well, what if we do? What if you got 3 injuries in the final 10 minutes of the game? What ifs? You can't deal with them. I just think that should be the way it works because there's not a hard and fast rule. But then the EFL need to sort this out. This cannot happen again. There has to be a clear rule that everybody knows. I know most clubs up and down the country that even in Sunday leagues abide by FA rules, but then their own leagues have their own rules. Most of them have a 75th minute rule that the game ends. I just don't think they can do that now. But it seems unbelievably unfair for it to start at 0-0 and then have 10 men. Like you correctly point out from my point of view, Mike, Ipswich have spent bucket loads, have been in the Premier League, X, Y, and Z. If we were ever going to beat Ipswich, more than likely it's going to be a home game. But also we need them to have an off day and us to have a good day. And that's what was happening. And I think if you replay that fixture 9 out of 10 times, they're going to win more than we win. There might be some draws in there, but they're going to win more than we win. And that's another added complication to this. But if you're Ipswich and they just hand us the points and they miss out on the playoffs, the promotion, I completely get it. So I think the only people you can point to here is the EFL. I've seen Ipswich fans having a whinge at us and saying we should be punished because we've not got a pitch fit enough. I do think there is an element where we have to look at our pitch and say if it's not holding water in September, I know the weather, but we've had a couple of postponements now, if you can include this one, for the weather in the last 12 months, and we haven't had an awful lot of them for the past 20, 30 years. So something's not quite right. I know that the pitch drains into the River Darwen and it was high. But I also think, a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Rovers were talking about actually the pitch needs completely redoing. It's getting an old pitch. And they've kind of stitched it, haven't they? But they've not done it from bottom up. So I think that has to play a part at the same time. But I stand by, you cannot start this game from scratch. That's just not fair with 11v11. But the EFL have got only themselves to blame. If there'd have been a hard and fast rule, there's no discussion. That's what happens. How you cannot have a black and white rule is tough. And if he'd have stopped the game on like he did in the 79th and 39 seconds, was it? And we'd have been looking at it and going, oh, there's 21 seconds until the 80th minute. Yeah, we'd have all been singing a bit of So Solid Crew. But at the same time, we would have been going, has he done that on purpose? We'd have been talking about all that, but that would have been arbitrary. There was a hard and fast rule in place, and there isn't, and therefore the only people you've got to point the finger at is the AFL.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes there are situations that will create rules, but this is a weird situation because you would have thought there would be a clear rule in there. For match abandonments, it's not unusual for weather to abandon games at most clubs. I mean, yes, you've got under pitch heating and all of this. To stop ice and snow. Drainage is an issue at other clubs as well. It's not just our own, but you've potentially got fog and all of this that can come in. Yeah. You just would have thought there would be something there. I did actually think about that 80th minute thing and thought, I wonder if there is a rule that says, because 80 minutes, it just has a feeling about it that would be the figure that they would throw out there as being the cutoff. And I just thought it'd be such a Rovers thing if it's just them few seconds that we needed. Hopefully it pushes the owners into getting the pitch done because it's something that's been talked about for quite a while. I know the forum's been talking about it over the last few years about the condition of the pitch and the drainage. So hopefully it does push them to do something if we're going to get a positive out of it.
Undoubtedly, and it's something obviously we will talk about at the next forum. I know they've done the boilers, so the undersoil heating, they were packing in on and off. They've done all of that. They have stitched the pitch, so it means it's about 80% 4G and the rest grass, which is what most clubs have. But it also needs rebuilding from the bottom up. It's not been done since it was put in 92, I don't think. So that will not help. I know it still drains into the river, but that's not going to help. What I don't understand, though, is I go to watch Lancashire at cricket. The pitch gets wet. On comes a blotting machine that comes on, a giant sponge on a tractor, rolls around a bit like when you see them laying tarmac. It picks loads of water up, it goes to the edge of the pitch and fires it off. Now, I appreciate they're probably firing it into the River Darwen or at the away fans, but forget that bit for a second. That clears the pitch. Yeah, well, yeah. But that clears the pitch of water. Why have football clubs not got one? Cricket clubs cannot have that much money that they can afford them and football clubs can't. You can't say it would damage the pitch because a cricket pitch is pretty delicate. So that would have just literally 10 minutes on the pitch. Job done. I don't understand why they don't have them. But anyway, that's
they had it in the NFL the other day. They play on more field turf than anything. But yeah, they have these big. It's like squeegee mops, and they just go along. And like you say, there is stitching there, but I think that there is obviously a risk. And I'm not a groundsman. I don't know. Hopefully, there's one that's listening that can actually make a comment as to why that isn't a possibility. But I did think that, but I felt a bit sorry for the ground staff going on there.
Oh.
Just a couple of little pitchforks and they were just like going through the motions. It was like, come on, boys, I ain't got a chance with this.
It was never going to make any difference, but they had to make an effort, didn't they? Yeah, it was. I mean,
when you saw them walking on and it was splashing on their boots, I was like, yeah, the rain was coming down. There was no way that game was going to continue.
No, but on the ref, that was another little gripe that I had. Now, I'm not arguing with his decision to stop the game, but he wasted a bit of time with one of his bits of technology. Then there was another, but then to stop the game, it was like normally they get the captains together and say, right, listen, what's going on? And there's a bit of a warning first. He just stopped the game. They were playing 5-yard passes across the worst bit of the pitch on a puddle because I was sat in the Jack Walker lower near the Rovers dugout. Kieran McKenna was crying his eyes out for about 20 minutes, so it's no wonder the pitch was flooded. But the ref then just stopped the game, came off like the rain was ever going to stop. It was never forecast to stop. It was getting worse. Goes off, comes back on, rolls the ball with, I mean, if it was 10-pin bowling, he's knocking nothing over. That's bouncing back. And then he proceeded to walk to where the puddle was and drop it in and go, oh, yeah, that's a big puddle. That's just stopped. Off we go. Yes, of course. And he was packing some guns, was the fella. He could have rolled that or kicked it a right distance. But anyway, there's my little whinge about the ref over. But yeah, I just think it's farcical. The EFL shouldn't have been the ref's decision in that sense, whether the game in a match report, whether it continues. It's just, you think back, they would have just played the game the day after. They might have played the 10, if it was Falcon, it was going to clear. They might have played it 2 hours later. There was one in pre-season where, was it Chelsea played in America and it was too hot, or there was a storm and they played 2 hours later. Now, that wouldn't have worked in this case, of course, but there's got to be rules in place for this. This is not something that is just going to happen as a one-off. I'm surprised it's not happened before in many ways that you can think of. There's been cases lower down in the league. There's been a case where Blackpool, I think on the last game of the season, it got abandoned because fans came on the pitch and the result stood. It just feels wrong that there's not a black and white rule.
It does, and they will make a rule for it. It'll become the Ewood Park rule. It's hopefully going to be announced pretty soon, so then we can all either get over it and or celebrate. It's going to be one or the other. It's quite funny. I've seen quite a few people putting out there what they think should happen. I saw some people say that it should be that we continue same teams and everyone has to have a shower in their kit beforehand before going on the pitch. And they all have to run around for 80 minutes before we actually kick off. I was told behind closed doors in training, just bring them up and do that. There's lots, but I think it's going to be either Rovers are given the 3 points, or more likely the game is replayed at a later date at a cost of the club, which is frustrating. But let's go into the game a little bit now. Obviously, there's no point in going on about too much to do with it, but the interesting one was Tavares getting injured in the warm-up and Gardner Hickman coming in. It's another injury that we're going to have to deal with. But it was good to see Gardner Hickman get his start.
When I saw the change, I was actually quite pleased. I thought, I'd said in the previous pod, I would have started Gardner Hickman against Ipswich. I think they're dominant in the middle of the park. I think Tavares lets people run off him still at this moment in time. I would have played Gardner Hickman. And I was really impressed with him. I thought defensively he was quite sound. But there was a point where, his passing was decent, but there was a point where he was almost around the edge of his own box in the first half. And he sort of on the half turn swiveled and played a pass between the lines to somebody's feet in the number 10 role, and I thought that was a brave pass. That's not the kind of pass I knew you could play, and I liked what I saw from him. I really did. I thought he complemented Tronstad well. I thought he gave us a bit more solidity, but he wasn't just somebody he wasn't Adam Forshaw, and that's no disrespect to Adam Forshaw, but somebody who's just going to sit there with the ball and play 5-yard ball. I thought this was a performance of somebody who showed he's got a little bit of everything in the middle of the park, not getting carried away by him by any stretch. But I actually thought, do you know what? For me, you are not coming out of that team until you do something wrong now. I think he's shown more than I've seen from Tavares so far. I'll caveat that. I do think Tavares will make a really good player. I just think he's going to take time to bed in, and we've expected too much of him at the moment.
Yeah, and it is a difficult position to play in midfield when you've just come into a new team, because obviously there's a lot of moving parts around you that you need to kind of adjust to. I'm going to start having the graphics up of our starting lineup, but because the match was abandoned, that wasn't created as I wanted it to be. So we've got another teletext version here. Look at that in all its glory. But the starting lineup defensively, again, let's talk about the game like it did end on the 90th minute and we won 1-0. It would have been another clean sheet. And Scott Wharton was front row centre once again. Defensively, I'm quite astounded with what's gone on, because we've gone from having Hyam and McLaughlin conversations of saying, well, in fact, let's talk last season. We was talking about Hyman Carter being the go-to centre-back pairing, and we loved it. Then it was Hyman Bart, and Bart's really created a great partnership with Hyman. Now it was then it was Hyman McLaughlin, and now it's Wharton and Miller. They're just plugging anyone into this system, and they seem to be playing really well.
Yeah, I thought Miller did okay. I think he's got a lot of learning to do as a centre half. I know we signed him as a right back, regardless of what the club says. I saw the first interview, I saw the first tweet at the same time as Britain going out the door. I think he's got the attributes to play there. He's got the physicality to play there, but he's got a lot to learn. I mean, he played for Australia, a right wing back, and by all accounts played really well. But I thought he did okay. I thought he learnt quick. I was a bit concerned in the first 30 seconds. Off the ball, George Hurst got a grip of him, turned him, spun him, dragged him. And that's not something I would have expected off George Hurst and him. Then the ball came over, and it was obviously skipping off the ground quite quick. And he went to control it, and it skipped off his shin, went out for a throw. And I thought, this is not a great start. And he settled right down. I thought he looked more comfortable again when we went to 3 at the back. Obviously, we almost replicated what we did at Watford, slightly different personnel. But I thought he looked more comfortable then. And the fact that they'd brought on, my mind's gone blank, left winger from Sunderland, Jack Clark. I thought that was a right thing to do, because then we had Miller and we had Alabios that were both able to almost double up on him and deny him that space in between. And I thought that was working really well. I know they got clear, and there was an amazing clearance from Ribeiro to deny Smodic. But I thought defensively we looked pretty comfortable. I don't recall Toth being in major danger. There was one in the first half from Hurst when he got through, and it was offside when you look back at it. So I was pretty comfortable with our defensive performance throughout.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And I know that it wasn't great conditions for both teams, but we seemed to deal with it. Like you said, the ball was skidding up and it seemed really calm. I'll tell you what, Scott Wharton's come in. I was really expecting him to be a little bit jittery, because when you spend that much time out, and he wasn't having the greatest career for us at that point. He was being asked to do quite a lot, as we've spoken about, but he's come back in and he's just absolutely solid. And it must be the manager's just asking him to do the simple things. If it's there, clear it. And if you have the chance to make a pass, make a pass. They're not asking him to do too much, and it's working really well. I thought Gardner Hickman was really solid and created a more solid midfield. And it did seem like we was just trying to kind of hold Ipswich at arm's length, because they are a very good side. I mean, you're talking about Jack Clark coming off the bench. I mean, what a player that would be to have, and he's coming off the bench. Schmodics, these are really good championship players, and they've just got them spare. So I thought we dealt with it really well. There was a few people that called us out for saying Good Johnson should start over Ohashi, something I said. Ohashi starts, and he was buzzing around. But Cantwell, he seems to have found a home. He see that as soon as he's got that armband, you said his work rate should not be questioned. Absolutely spot on. He is just he seems to have settled in now, and he seems to have found a home here.
Yeah, I think we both said the same about Good Johnson. We were really impressed with the 20 minutes we saw, and we'd have liked to have seen it. You can't knock Ohashi though. He works really hard. He links the play up. He got the assist against Watford. He created the penalty opportunity here. Cantwell won that penalty. I mean, I've seen, just before I talk about Cantwell, I've seen Ipswich fans saying that trying to claim that the conditions had an impact on, first of all, the red card. I mean, if you watch how that ball bounces, it bounces high. That is not, and that's in the spot where it got really boggy. That is not any shape or form to do with the weather, and Cantwell's penalty wasn't. But Cantwell wasn't the best game of the season for him, but that's his third goal of the season. He only scored 3 last season. He is just really coming into his own. I think, like you're talking about Wharton, who's taking a leadership role on, he's not a shrinking violet. He's not coming and playing second fiddle. He's kind of come into the team and gone, actually, I'm one of the elder statesmen here. I'm going to take charge. Cantwell's doing it in a very different way. He's leading by example. He's being brave. He's getting on the ball in difficult areas, but taking real responsibility for it. He's winning free kicks. He's winning penalties. He's taking penalties. Great penalty. Keeper went the right way and still stood no chance. He's just showing the player that I think we hoped he would be. I think there's still more in him, though. I look at him and think your quality is Premier League quality, and right now you're performing at a level of a very good Championship player. But he is getting the numbers now. He's no assists, and we talk about this all the time. But he's getting the assist. He's playing the pass before the pass, as they call it. At Norwich, he played it to Ohashi. Ohashi gets the assist, but it's all to do with Cantwell. Here, he wins the penalty. That's an assist. And he scores it. There's a goal. So he would have had 3 goals and 1 assist.
Yeah, he's settled in nicely as the captain. I thought in the game he looked quite controlled. He looked quite happy. He also seems like he's playing his role well. He's not trying to do too much. Something that we've seen in the past with a few players, where when it's not necessarily going right, they try and do probably more than what they should. It seems like he's trusting himself in his role and others in theirs. Marishta, once again, I thought looked like he was someone that is going to be a good signing for us. And Hedges, I was just about to say another 90 minutes under his belt, but another game where he wasn't being subbed off. He might have been, but he's starting to get minutes as well, and he's starting to seem like he's an Ismaël player.
Yeah, and I think the combination of Marishta and Hedges works really well. I think he helps Ribeiro out really well. He was going to wing back, and he think he plays that role really well. He's underrated, his Hedges. I think the problem Ryan Hedges has is whoever's on the other side, whoever's on the other wing. If they're not a naturally creative player, then the onus seems to fall on him, and that's not. He can do that, but that's not what he does week in, week out. He does a real job for the team tactically and defensively, and he does it very well. I think Marishta, you're absolutely right to mention him. I think he's key at the minute with Cantwell because Cantwell trusts him with the ball. He trusts Hedges with the ball, and he trusts Ohashi with the ball. And that's helping Cantwell not do too much. But again, I think you make a really good point there. Cantwell is in danger because he's got more ability than probably 90% of our squad. The danger is that you overplay, you try and do too much, you don't trust your teammates. And I think he's got that balance spot on at the minute.
Yeah, he's definitely trusting his teammates because of the way he's playing the ball. Before he seemed like he just won. Last season, he just seemed like there was a ball he wanted to play and no one was really on the same page as him. Whereas now he seems to understand kind of the players around him as well as himself. So I think he's just really settled in nicely. And now we have surrounded him with a couple of more players that seem to be linking in with him well. He just seems to. He has grown. Obviously, we've got some 3-word reactions for this game that's going to be quite funny. I did look at the fan reactions, but a lot of it is just obviously speculating what's going to happen. So, what are your favourite 3 words?
As always, Mike, there was an awful lot that I can't say. So I will just try and sieve through them. There was quite a few that were saying along the lines of the weather, naturally. Deluge in Blackburn. Why always us? Why only Rovers? These kind of things were coming in. Paul Smith, clever. What a shower. But then Michael Heap. I like this because the majority were focusing on the weather. So Gary Python Purvis, it never rains. But Michael Heap, really positive performance. Love that. But then Chris Lofthouse, for any of us who've got kids, this will be embedded in your brain. I apologise if it's something you've managed to get rid of and it's come back. And it is, of course, when Nemo is encouraging the fish in the net to swim down, and he just keeps swimming, and then Dory just keeps swimming. But yeah, sorry.
And you've just put that in everyone's head now. Planted.
Sorry.
Planted. So we don't know where we're going to be in the league, but we know that we are going to be playing Charlton next. It is away. We are going to be facing JRC's Army. So we've got a week of preparing for that again. There's no midweek game, which is good because then hopefully we can get some people on the same page tactically again. So that gives the new signings a bit more opportunity. I can see us keeping with the same side again. As much as I said last week, well, I'd like to see some changes. If you've got a week now and you've now got a couple of good performances under your belt, I actually have now changing my mind and thinking, let's keep the same team.
Yeah, I think when you've got a week between them, it's not like they played 90 minutes either, is it? But no, I think when you've got a week between them, same for Charlton, they've no midweek cup game either. I think that's fine to play the same team. I think when you start getting into fixtures being congested, another issue with a replay, it brings problems, and you then have to start looking at people like maybe Scott Wharton, Hayden Carter, all the people who you look at and say, fitness-wise, are you able to play 2-3 games in a week, 8 days? But I think when you've got a week between them, it's absolutely fine to recover, rest, get your work done, and then get tactical work done and go again. So I think it's just based on performances at that point. And for me, I wouldn't take anybody out of that starting 11 as started the actual game. I would keep Gardner Hickman in the middle of the park as well.
Yeah, I think so. It seems to be working, and I quite like that. Charlton, as you can see, they are just above us in the league by a couple of points, even though they have played that extra game. They've had a decent result last week against Sheffield United.
Yeah.
I say it's decent. They're not. I know Sheffield United aren't having a great season themselves, but at the end of the day, it is Sheffield United, so I will see that as a good result. They're there for the taking. I do feel like we have the ability now. We have a bit of form. We have a bit of confidence where we can start to get some results, which is a far cry from a couple of weeks ago where it all seemed like everything was imploding again. I'd like us to go down there. I'd like us to have a real go at them and see what we can do. I'm quite happy with the same starting lineup, whether Gardner Hickman can be a little bit more attacking for us as well. I would like to see Good Johnson getting on the pitch again and seeing what he can do. But Ohashi, he's probably earned his starting lineup again. He's placing the starting lineup again. I think that is the only position I can see potentially changing is Ohashi for Good Johnson. I think when you've got Good Johnson there and he has the ability that he has and you've spent the money you have on him, I think that's probably the wild card for me. And I know that I'm going to get pelters in the comments for it, as I did last week, but I still think that's the wild card.
Yeah, I think had Carter been fit, that would have been the other one. But at the minute, it doesn't look like he's going to be. He didn't train all last week. I don't think you put 2 left-footed centre halves there. He may change formation because Charlton generally play 3, or it turns into a 5 with Nathan Jones. I've just done the preview with it, recorded it with one of the Charlton lads, which will be out later in the week. He talks about how they're really strong at home, but we've nothing to fear. You know, we've played 3 games away from home. We've won 2, lost 1, 4 goals got 4 goals for, 1 goal against. I think we look pretty solid, and I see nothing that Charlton have got that's amazing. That doesn't mean they're not going to beat us, but there's nothing that terrifies me. I think we've gone to Watford, who've looked pretty average. Hull have looked pretty average. I think Charlton are probably pretty average as well. They might go and beat us 3-0. It's not me having a pop. I think he'd said that they're targeting this as a game that, if we're going to survive, we're going to have to beat Blackburn at home. I completely understand that. We'd be looking the same. But that is the beauty of the Championship. I think they have had some decent results. They lost to a wonder goal against Leicester, but they did okay. They lost in drew in the 86th, 88th minute or something in a rival game against Millwall. So they could have had more points, though. They've started pretty well. And I think we and others predicted that they would be down there, but we didn't predict they'd go down because they've got Nathan Jones. And you know what you're going to get. He's turned them into almost Millwall light. They'll be horrible. They'll time waste if they're 1-0 up. I remember, never forget that game when he moved all the balls from around the pitch. He's a horrible, horrible manager to go against, but he's very experienced and he knows what to do. So I think the first goal will be really key. I think if we go 1-0 up, we've shown we can actually shut games down a little bit under Ismaël, which we did under Eustace very well. But we know Nathan Jones' teams, if they go 1-0 up, they don't give many chances away. They will retreat. They'll absolutely have no shame in time wasting, doing all the dark arts. It's just whether we can get past big Thomas Kaminski.
And that is another player that I forgot to bring up, actually, was Kaminski. Because he is a very good goalkeeper, and hopefully we've got enough to beat him. But we've got a sneaky good run of form at the moment. Let's assume that the Ipswich game was a win. You've got 3 wins out of 4, 3 clean sheets out of 4. We're sneakily having some decent form right now, and it's a bit mad saying because we're in 18th, but we seem to be building something right now, which again, considering a few weeks ago we were feeling really negative about how things were going, it seems to be building, and we can really do something this weekend that makes us feel even happier. I think they're there for the taking. I really do. I think you're right. I think the first goal is going to be key. I think it's 2 teams that are potentially thinking about beating the others, exactly what you said. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. My prediction is we're going to go and get something from there. Yeah,
I think the word you used there that really stood out, and I think it's right, is building. So West Brom away first game of the season was pretty poor. We've had an absolute load of turmoil go on then around the transfer window. Yes, we had the whole performance that was good and was weird because it was tremendous football and it came from nowhere. But then we've had a little international break. We've come back. We've beaten Watford away in a solid performance. Okay, 80 minutes. We'll stop the game there for a second. 1-0 up against a Ipswich team. All of us would have probably taken a draw before the game. We look pretty comfortable with everything they'd thrown at us up to that point. And that will then be 2 wins out too after the international break, when he's had a settled squad, a week to work on them, another week to work on them, and it's the same again. So everything is pointing right now to a settled, pretty happy camp. And tactically, we seem to know what we're doing. I think if I was doing a Hitch's bet this week, it'd be under 2.5 goals, though. I don't think there'll be loads of goals in it. I think if both teams score, it'd be a draw. I think there'll be 1 goal that decides it. I could see us going and winning 1-0. I could see them winning 1-0 equally. I do think that first goal will decide it.
Yeah, and it's mad to think that we're thinking like that, because it did seem defensively we were in absolute turmoil. And it is nice that we, and it's not to say that we were right or wrong. We were saying that we was happy with the signings, happy enough. There were some risky ones in there, but we could see there was a new ethos coming into the club, and we could see that there was something going. And then that Hyam transfer happens, and suddenly we've changed our tune, and we're really upset about the defence. We're not sure where it's going to go, but now Scott Wharton's come back in and started to play quite strong. So it's weird to think that we could potentially be looking at another game where we're not conceding or conceding little, like you say. But
yeah,
carry on.
No, I was just going to say it is, and I think defensively we've looked very solid, and I think we're starting to be able to judge Ismaël now. He's got his team, he's got work he's been able to do on the training ground, but I still stick to the point. It's not me harking back to it and having a pop. I just think we put ourselves under unnecessary pressure, and we've had 2 games since we sold Dom Hyam and didn't replace him, and we've had the 1 game McLaughlin, so we only had 3 centre halves available, and then we've had Carter, so we've only got 3 centre halves available, and we're having a week between games. I still worry about us getting into November when we're 3 games in a week, December. And I just think we put ourselves under an unnecessary pressure. It's not
from a
I'm
personnel
saying,
point of view.
Yeah, we've just not got great depth. Can we change that to go 3 at the back? Absolutely. It's just that might be not a choice. And we didn't need to put ourselves in that situation, but we've talked about it. But defensively, I think Ismaël deserves great credit. I think Toth's an upgrade on what we had in pairs, but I think unit-wise, as a defence and as a team, we are pretty solid. Watch this now. I've said there won't be more than 2 goals. Defensively, we're solid. It'll be about 6-0. But I think he deserves
we can only go off what we've seen, can't we? And ultimately, what we've seen since Wharton's come back in is a no-nonsense, solid defensive player, and whoever he's been partnered with seems to be playing off him really well. So, yes, I would prefer Hyam to be here, and it could be luck more than judgment with the fact that they've let Hyam go, and we've managed to get players on the pitch that have played well. But I think it's working at the moment. I completely agree with you. What it takes is one more. We've got a relatively injury-prone defender in Carter, which is a shame because he's extremely talented. We've put a round piece in a square hole with Miller coming into centre-back. So really, from solid centre-backs, you only have, a small number. Is it only McLaughlin and Wharton and Carter then that are our only, actual centre-backs? So it is, we do understand what people are saying when they say about Hyam leaving is left to short, because we've said it. But obviously it is going well at the moment, and I think it's got to a point now where I'm actually looking forward to watching us play.
Yeah.
Previously, I've been very tentative, a little bit anxious about some games, where now I just feel like, the lads are playing well. They're quite confident. We've got some good pieces that have come in that seem to be doing quite well, which we'll get to in a second. And I seem quite excited to watch us play, which I think a lot of the fan base weren't, but I think they are now.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of intrigue about the new signings, a lot of intrigue about how we're going to perform. And so far, I think we've performed as well as we could have hoped, really. I think we've looked solid, but we've looked like we can create. So they'll make continue.
Well, talking about the signings then, our good friend Jack F. Scout, he's someone that we're going to try and work with going forward. He sends some really good stuff through to us.
Yeah,
It's mind-bending stats, and I love it. But trying to actually then put down what we want to discuss is another thing. So the ones that we've had off him so far to do with Baraggi and what he's potentially going to bring versus a Travis and a Buckley. So these are the kind of things he has sent to us, which is absolutely magnificent to look at. If you are a listener, we are going to explain, as well as the podcast, as the people watching on YouTube get to see it. But basically, it's a graph that's showing us Baraggi compared to Travis. So what we can see by this scouting is that his aerial defence is way better than Travis and Buckley. And some of the interesting stats that have actually been said was how poor.
Sorry.
Yeah, carry on.
Just to have a look at this. So, because this blew my mind when I saw it the first time. So the green on the graphic is Baraggi, am I right in saying?
Yeah.
The blue line then is Travis. The yellow line is Buckley. And the median of all of them is an orangey line on there. So the green, basically, the further out to the web, the better you are at that. attribute. Is that fair?
Yeah. So effectively, as Rovers fans, we need that green to be bigger because he's the one that we've got and the other two have left. So ultimately, we need to see more green than anything else. And as you can see by this, we can see it. Now, one thing that he does stipulate when he does this scouting is he has come from a different league. So it's difficult to adjust for what he's seen to the Championship because they are two different leagues. So do take this not with it. We still respect the stats, but it obviously is from a different league. But it does show how his all-round game is pretty good for the position that he plays. So you can see that his aerial defence is way better. His dribbling is way better. What's interesting to see is whilst his creativeness and finishing is better, it's not markedly better. Do you know what I mean? But he does get involved in the play quite a lot.
Yeah, and I think yes, he he's absolutely right to caveat these stats with he's playing in a different league, but at the same time, I think we can add some value to this because Rovers are using a data-driven model, so they'll be looking at whether it looks like this or not. They'll be looking at the same stats that he's drawing on, and Rovers are buying players from leagues that they believe are comparable and can then come and do an immediate job in the Championship. So they're using that data, and they're happy to run with it. So if they are, then we absolutely need to do the same. I think when you look at his all-round, so his ground defence is slightly weaker, but slightly. But then his creatives and his finishing is quite a bit better than theirs, but not. It's not his main strength, is it? So he's still going to be a real hard-working midfielder who's going to. Aerial defence is much better, but which hopefully will translate into the opposition box. But generally speaking, he's going to be a box-to-box midfielder who's going to be able to get stuck in and win the ball for us. Passing's not quite as good, which was interesting for me. That's something that I would have hoped would be certainly as good as Lewis Travis, because it's not a strength that you would necessarily associate with Travis. But actually, when I looked into this, Mike, it's about passing percentage of successful passes. Well, we all know that in itself, if you go and play only 5-yard balls sideways, your passing percentage is going to be unbelievable. So hopefully he's trying to play more progressive passes.
Yeah, so you can see that his progressive play isn't actually as good, like you say, but that is because obviously, like you say, it's probably a little bit less successful. But it is quite interesting to see. He did go on to talk about Travis versus Buckley, but obviously both now have left the club, so we won't go into that. But he was saying that Baraggi does rank better quite a lot of the stats, which is good to see. Another player that obviously joined was Taylor Gardner-Hickman, and this again shows what we wanted to see is more green. So you're seeing this is the same. Travis and Buckley are the same lines, but you're seeing a lot more from Gardner-Hickman in regards to the dribbling skills and finishing, plus some nice play involvement and aerial defence. So whilst the stats aren't quite as good as Baraggi, you're actually seeing the fact that he is better in a lot. The only thing he's not quite as good at is the passing. But to be honest, that could be because it was from a right back point of view as well.
Yeah.
So this is what he did stipulate, that because he did predominantly play right back, there are some things that don't quite correlate the same.
Yeah, and I think you also, both Baraggi and Gardner-Hickman have been involved in the play a lot more. Well, if you're involved in the play a lot more, your percentage is going to potentially suffer. And from what I saw of Gardner-Hickman at weekend, and then when you play right back, you tend to either just play 5-yard balls. He didn't do that at weekend, and he didn't do that for Birmingham either, because they were on the offensive and they played quite direct. So he's trying to play into the front man at right back. That's a percentage ball. You're going to lose possession quite often. And at weekend, I saw him trying to play passes between the lines, like we wanted Adam Wharton to do. And Adam Wharton's passing percentage could be 100. We all know that. And it wasn't, because he tried to play those passes right into the front man, which is risky because you're going right through the middle of the pitch. So the passing element I can forgive when you look at the rest of it. And Gordon Hickman isn't somebody who we can say, well, will he do it in the Championship? I know it was League One, but he's been in the Championship. He's been in English football. So I think his stats there show that, do you know what? On the basis of stats alone, and I know people have their opinion about them, we've replaced Travis and Buckley with people who are at the very least as solid.
Yeah, and these stats were phenomenal, and Jack's agreed to work with us, so we're going to start asking him for some more information. There's other things he sent that I think is absolutely amazing for us to use going forward. He's also talked about Good Johnson, saying that versus Gay, sorry, not Gay, it's Gay. He's got better goals per 90 minutes. It's every 332 minutes as opposed to the 410, but he has worse goal involvements. He's slightly outscored his XG. Whilst Gay does dribble twice as much, Good Johnson is slightly higher on the success rate when he does. And they have similar success in offensive duels. But again, this is different leagues. What's interesting is how Hashi does have better goals per minute at 267 and better goal involvement. So it's quite interesting. But you've got the eyeball test of what you see and the fact that the leagues are different. But it's quite interesting how that one's going to pan out. So it's going to be interesting when those stats. Some other things that he sent, and I know that obviously this player's now left, but it was Harry Leonard. It was someone that there was a few people in our comments saying we shouldn't have kept him. It was good to let him go. Quite happy to let him go, but he actually had the best goals per minute of any Blackburn striker. But even though he didn't play that many minutes, and what was interesting is he ranked top 5 strikers aged 20 and under in the 23-24 season. So he definitely was a talent. But let's talk about the one that is here, and it's Marishta. So these are the stats that have been sent. Now, we haven't got a nice graphic for this one, I'm afraid, because this is more of a scouting report. But he's twice as good at finishing as Hedges and pretty much bang on regarding goals versus expected goals. Vyman was the best finisher last season. So for reference, Hedges was about 0.42 goals versus his XG, and Vyman was 1.17, whereas Marishta's 0.95. So he's not that too far. Again, different leagues, we know.
So, just in terms of XG, so am I right in thinking 1 XG would be every goal you're expected to score, so a big chance you're scoring.
Yeah.
So therefore, Marishta's is 0.95, was it? So it's marginal. He's pretty much scoring every time he should score. And Hedges was about, was it 0.45?
So
Hedges
so he's about half the time.
Yeah.
And Vyman's actually scoring more than his XG.
Which will be partly influenced by the fact he scored from 30 yards against Burnley, yeah. Exactly. This is where Rovers have the stats. You then need to go and dive beyond them. I mean, Gay got an assist for that one. Do you remember when the ball came across the goal and it hit his heel and it went to Owen Beck? It counts as an assist.
Yeah, exactly. Well, what was interesting is Dolan was near enough bang on his XG for goals as well. So that was quite interesting. He does so going back to Marishta, he's considerably less defensive, wins less defensive duels. Goals per 90 only bettered by Vyman, assists own as similar to Dolan. So the stats aren't necessarily showing that we've got someone that's a lot better stats wise, but what I will say is compared to Vyman, obviously he's got age on his side and he probably plays a kind of position where he's probably going to get a little bit more for us than what he did. But yeah, it's really interesting stuff. We're going to try and use them graphics a little bit more. I think to summarize a little bit, what we're seeing without these signings are we're going to be getting hopefully upgrades, but there is a little bit of risk in these signings.
Yeah, and I think at the very least, what we've done is we've sold, from a Rovers scouting point of view, we've sold players like Lewis Travis for reported fees of £3 million and brought in replacements for less at a younger age. So you can see where they're going with it. It's just how much their judgment is right. Right now, as we are sat here, 5 or 6 games, depending what camp you're in, into the season, it looks right now like Alabiosu's going to be bang on in terms of their judgment. It looks like Miller's going to be a steady signing. It looks like McLaughlin's going to be a steady signing. Gardner Hickman, we've seen one game, but all the fan reaction from West Brom and from Birmingham and Ismail's work with him looks like he's going to be a steady signing and one who's going to challenge for the first team. Baraji, we have no idea about. Marishta, though, looks like he's going to do the business in terms of at least at the level that we were getting from Dolan at that point. Whether he's going to be as good for us as Dolan could have been, who knows? Dolan was a lot younger. And then Johnson looks to be like he will be an upgrade on Gay. Whether he is, we will find out. But yeah, I think the data-driven approach is not, I know some people have derided it, but it's not just purely play Football Manager and looking at stats and then going, right, that one. They do that as a benchmark. They observe them, they watch their clips, because you will get the odd player that ends up hitting their backside 5 times a game and they get assists. So I'm hopeful from what I've seen in the first, I'm going to go with 6 games.
Yeah, me too. I've just been looking at some of the other stats there, and I would love to go through them all. And we, like I said, we are going to work with Jack to get some more graphics, because I think everyone's going to find them really interesting. But remember to go to F Scout. It's on Instagram. Is he on any other socials as well? Or is it mainly Instagram?
Do you know, I am not sure. I should know that. But if you follow him on our Instagram, we follow him if you want to try and find us. But yeah, and if there's anything, he's a Rovers fan as well. He's really open to he loves it himself. If there's anything you think, do you know what, I'd really be interested to look at, I don't know, whether it's Good Johnson in the air versus Gay in the air, assists from Gay to Ohashi, he will look into it in the most minute of detail, and we love that. So what we just need to be careful of is that we don't delve too deep into it and it becomes too stats heavy, because we are loving it as well. I'll be honest, I'm going to tap into him for when I start my new Football Manager save, because there is a new one coming out. But yeah.
Exactly. Now, I'm going to wait a couple of weeks. I want to see some of these new signings, and then you get the.
Yep.
So what I like to do with this is it's the eyeball test. What can I see?
Yep.
And then I like stats to back up what I've seen. So what I'm going to do is make a few more notes of these new signings, and I'm going to see what I want, and then I'm going to hopefully have Jack back me up. And if he doesn't back me up, I'm just not going to tell anyone what the stats are and just keep it to myself. But if he does back me up, then 100% I'm going to be on here with all the stats, and everyone's going to see everything. So, yeah, great stuff. Make sure you do that. So the other thing is Mike Sheeran has left the club after 10 years. It's another person that's left. It seems to have just been a thank you and goodbye. It's a little bit more than other coaches have had in the past. Is there someone waiting to come in?
I mean, we have moved an awful lot of people on. We are wanting alignment in the club, which I think we can all, whether you agree with what the model they're going with is, you have to have alignment, and that has to be key from the first team manager to the under-21s manager. He's been there for a while. Whether they weren't seeing eye to eye, I don't know. But he's been there for a while. It did seem very sharpish. Not much has come out. He didn't get a 7-word exit like somebody else did recently, but at least he's had one, because we've not had confirmation about David Glow either, have we? But I do think I do get concerned when people have been at a club for a long, long time and lots of them are leaving. But I think if you take them all in isolation, which is very difficult to do, you do need alignment from top to bottom. And if you've got a way of doing things and somebody doesn't quite fit in with that, it doesn't really work. I have my reservations when people move on en masse, but I think if we just purely look at it and take it at face value, who knows? Maybe he's got another job offer. But I think so far we seem to have alignment in the club now, and if that's the reason, then great, because you do need alignment in your 21s when you are, we've been playing Tyjon in there, Mialski's in there, Batty's in there. Some of the first team players will go in there. Then you need to be playing a similar way. I find it difficult to think that Sharon didn't do that because he did with Thomason and he did with Mowbray, he did with Eustace. But yeah, we don't know the reasons. I just hope it's a positive thing for the club and that it is about aligning the club. And in which case, fine. I think if you're going to do something, you have to do it whole hog.
100%. It was one thing that you brought up when we first started doing this about having all the different levels. You know, if you're a club like us that's relying on youth coming through, they need to be ready for the tactics being played at first team level. So everyone does need to be in alignment. And we've talked about this new ethos of the club, and that's getting the right coaches in the right position. As much as it's a horrible thing to have people leave the club that have been here for so long, ultimately, sometimes it needs to be done, and it's like we say, we don't know why this has happened, but we've got to assume that it's going to be the right thing for the club going forward. So before we go, Mark, we obviously got nominated for the Football Content Awards, Best Club Content Creator in the Football League. There's a few obviously going for it.
Yeah,
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for nominating us, and we've put a thing out there on how to vote. If you can vote, that is brilliant. It's much appreciated. We don't do it for anything. We don't do it for money. We don't do it for awards. We do it because we just love chatting shit about Blackburn. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that's nominated us and voted. Mark.
Completely echo that. I mean, we've spoken a few times about how we'd probably be still doing this even if nobody was watching it. So the fact that people watch it and enjoy it, great. If that means that somebody wants to tell us that we're half decent at what we do, even better. I think it gets decided by 50% of it's done on votes, 50% is on what the judges decide. There are some big clubs that are in that content. You can imagine Football League. Obviously, there's a load of content creators even just for Blackburn. So we're incredibly honoured that we've been nominated for it by you guys. One thing I would say is the voting is pretty straightforward. Please do vote for us. Please encourage other people. It doesn't take any of your data either. You don't have to put anything in, I don't think, other than the basics. You know, you did a little guide, didn't you, Mike, for people to do it? Please do encourage people. You know, Rovers are a club that, even on their official social media and their YouTube, don't get as many views as an awful lot of teams who you would think are smaller than Blackburn. But yeah, this is about give us a shout out, and hopefully, if we can get on that stage at Ellen Road and we've picked up a first, second, or third bronze, silver, gold, whatever it is, we will bang the drum. If it's gold, I'll be honest, I might slip something in that we beat Turfcast, what they did last year. Let's beat the Dingles. Why not?
Exactly. But yeah, make sure you vote. Well, for us, don't vote for anyone else. You've got to vote for us. And also, you may as well subscribe while you're there as well. We're still finding that a lot of our views aren't matching the subscribers. So yeah, just make sure you do that. But once again, thank you everyone for supporting us. This is only our second season doing the Blackburn Ends. Obviously, we was on Rovers Chat, and we decided to carry on the podcast because that had ended. We decided to carry it on here, and we've got the same viewers, we've got new ones, and it's grown far beyond what we thought it would already. And I think we're just continuing to grow, and it's down to you guys. So we really do appreciate it. But we'll stick a pin in it now. Hopefully, by this time next week, we'll have 3 points. No, we'll have 6 points. We'll have 3 points from the Ipswich game. We'll have 3 points from the Charlton game. We'll be nice and positive again. But Mark, have a great week.
Thank you. I'm off to get a lem sip and another early night. This man flu is doing me dirty at the minute, Mike, but I've managed to get through it without coughing too much. But thank you very much.
Exactly. And remember to vote, subscribe, and pray for Mark's health. And hopefully next week we'll all be positive and Mark will be nice and healthy. But until then, have a great week and we'll see you next time.